Hey everybody, welcome to back to my series on building a practice routine that fits into your life and makes you better. Today we're going to talk about practicing chords, and the first thing I want to do is just touch again on how to build the practice routine and that fits into your life. Basically two key things here: consistency and manageable blocks. So if you break your practice into blocks of things that you want to practice, chords, scales, arpeggios, whatever it is, songs, it doesn't matter, it's all the same. You can then make those blocks as long or as short as you want, and that's key because I feel like, if you want to practice something, get it really good, take that block and make it longer, make it 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever. But if you can practice something for 5 minutes a day, every day for 30 days, you're going to improve. You're going to take that concept and really understand it very well. So in some respects, it only takes 5 minutes a day of practice to master stuff. Again, with the caveat that the more time you spend on it, the quicker and the better you will have an understanding and be able to play it. But I think that's key, just taking those little blocks and just doing them every day and being consistent with that. So with that said, let's move on to what can you practice if you're doing chords. Well, there's two elements when you're trying to practice chords. The first element is actually learning the chord itself, and the second element is moving from one chord to another. That's what we call a chord progression, and if you know anything about playing guitar or how music works, you understand that that's key. You have to be able to move from one chord to the next chord in time perfectly so that the song sounds correct. So it's tricky stuff to actually do these chord changes sometimes. So a few things that you can work on if you are at a beginning level is, first of all, what chords do you know? I would recommend starting with the fundamental 1-4-5 chord progression. You probably don't even know what that means at this point, but that's okay, you don't have to. But doing something like G, C, and D, and the reason for that is these chords appear in millions and millions of songs almost in that order. If they're not in that order, they're in an inversion of that order. So having the ability to play from a G to a C to a D, to a C, just interchanging those chords smoothly, will get you a huge way down the road to being able to play guitar really well. So let's talk about how exactly you do that. Well, okay, first of all, I would say take something like a very basic G chord. This is a very simple one, just one note. Whoops, helps if I turn up my guitar. So the only notes I'm really playing here are my D string, G, B, and high E, and I'm holding down the 3rd fret. So that's a sort of simple G chord. And then from there we're going to move to a C. So an easy C is sort of like this with 2 fingers. I'm playing the same strings, but if you want to play a proper C, get that 3rd finger onto the 3rd fret. It's going to sound a little better, obviously. And from there, once you've done that, you can work on to a D chord. Okay? Very simple. Okay. But is it simple? Well, not if you've never done it before. So the first thing you have to do is just get that G chord, play it 4 times, go to C, 4 times, back to G, 4 times, C, 4 times, backwards and forwards. Set a timer, do it for 3 minutes, and then do it for another 3 minutes, or as long as your block might be. Just break it up. Why do I use 3 minutes? Because 3 minutes is your average pop song. You need to be able to play consistently and have the stamina to do 3-minute chunks. Once you can do that, let's go from C to D. Now I've kind of omitted the part, or just skipped over the part we actually have to learn the chord, There's lots and lots and lots of tutorials on that. I'm not going to get into the specifics of doing you know, how to play a D chord. I'll do other videos on that kind of stuff. We're really just talking about practice strategies here. Okay. Now this 2-chord backwards and forwards thing is fairly simple and reasonably easy. You should be able to get it within, you know, a few practices, but will net you a massive amount of results. So for such a small sort of practice tool, you're really going to get huge benefits immediately and further down the line. If you can smoothly move from G to C to D, you've got a huge amount of songs that you would then be able to play. So after that, if you're comfortable with that stuff, then think about like all the open chords. There's 15 open chords. I've got PDFs for all this. Just send me a comment or something and we'll figure out how to get that to you. I could probably link it somehow, but I'm not that advanced with YouTube, as you can probably tell. But I can get you the PDFs if you'd like them, so just send me a comment. So really, you know, getting down your open chords, so A minor, A7, B7, C, C7, D, D7, D minor, and so on, you know, all the way up to G7. Alright, so you can work on those. If you can do all of those, again, you're opening up this huge area where you can play lots and lots and lots and lots of stuff. It's really quite inspiring. Let's move on to the intermediate stuff. So you know, if you can do your open chords, you're comfortable with those, and you're fairly reasonably good at shifting between, you know, your open chord positions, then start thinking about other things such as bar chords. Okay, just basic bar chords. So G. I'm just going to use G, C, and D throughout this entire video, actually. You know, working on those. If you can do your bar chords, start thinking about the caged stuff, right? So if you're practicing caged stuff, then what that means is you're using different chord shapes to play the same sets of chords, and that really opens up the neck for you. So watch this. Move it up the neck. So there's your first position. Next position, G, C, D. Next position, G, C, D. Next position, G, C, D. Okay, so now you've opened up all these chords all across the neck, which is really great. That kind of stuff, you know, do you know your cage? Do you know your triads? You can start thinking about chord extensions. Do you know your major sevens, dominant sevens? You know, all these kinds of things. There's just, you know, as you get more advanced, there's just more topics to cover. So let's look at some of the more advanced stuff. Obviously, taking chord extensions, that kind of thing. So making chords, you know, ninths, major ninths, 11s. 13s, all that kind of stuff. Really, the biggest chord family is your dominant chord family. Do you know your augmented chords, your diminished chords? One of the things I like to do is add extensions to chords. So something like this. If we take a C chord, this is C9. Let's add F sharp, make it Lydian. And then let's move that up 1 fret and make that. Now listen to how this is going up the scale. So you can just move this around, you know. It's basically inversions of a C chord and extensions of a C chord, is the best way to think about it. And that's something that I learned out of this book here, which is the Joe Pass chord book, which I didn't understand for years because there's no chord names. So what on earth is going on there? This one here. You can get all of this stuff on Amazon, by the way. I'll show you a few chord books in a minute. That Joe Pass guitar chord book really deals with just learning shapes and the sounds, and that's really handy because it opens up all sorts of sort of areas. You know, I think guitar playing for me personally is all about shapes, patterns and shapes. You know, I do more, you know, think more in those terms than I do in terms of like, you know, C, E, G, that kind of stuff. So let's have a look at some of these books that I think are useful. If you're more advanced, something like this, Joe Pass Chords. One of my favorite books for chords, I like the Don Letarski stuff, which is something my guitar teacher turned me onto. This is arpeggios for guitar, but let me show you why I like it. Basically, he's got the chord type, and then the arpeggio and the scale that fits over it all on one page, so you can see exactly what all the connection is between them. A great book. What else have we got? We've got this one here, Chord Progressions, very important. Just bunches and bunches and bunches, 1,908 chord progressions, okay? Rob Garland, one of my favorite teachers, not personally, I've spoken to him on Skype or something. I was in a call with him at one point. There was a bunch of us, as a Steve Vai thing, but oh, that's someone at my door. Caged Rhythm Guitar Method, Rob Garland, really good, kind of intermediate. And what else have we got? Movable chords, again, Don Letarski. Oops, there we go, Don Letarski, movable chords. Chord orbits, these kind of deal with caged. And finally, the Bible. Ted Green, Chord Chemistry. Can't omit this book from your chord library. If you're a beginner, I bought this when I was like 17, 18. I tried to work through it and I didn't have a clue. I don't think that Ted Green necessarily, when he wrote this, wrote it out in the clearest way. It helps if you have some kind of knowledge with chord chemistry, and that will allow you to understand a bit more about what he's talking about, because it's very in depth. He's really the sort of considered the sort of chord master. Amazing player. Sadly, only one album out, but loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of YouTube footage. So of Ted. Sorry, someone at my door again. Of Ted, you know, just teaching. So anyway, that's it for this lesson. That's chords for you. I will catch up with you in the next video. Bye for now.